Evan thought people misunderstood him because he wasn't explaining himself clearly enough. So he explained more. He sent the longer message, added the missing context, replayed the conversation, and prepared a better answer for the next time. But some people are not listening for information. They are listening for evidence that they are still allowed to judge you. And the more Evan tried to prove he was a good person, the more he quietly accepted their right to put him on trial. It started at work. Evan was a project coordinator at a small company, the kind of person who remembered the deadline everyone else forgot and fixed problems before anyone noticed they existed. One Thursday afternoon, a report went out with the wrong number in it. The mistake had started in a spreadsheet someone else sent him. Evan had caught it, corrected most of it, and sent the final version before the meeting. But one number was still wrong. His manager looked at the screen and asked, "How did this happen?" Evan could have answered in one sentence. Instead, he opened the entire case. He explained when he received the spreadsheet, which version he used, who had edited it, why the deadline had been moved, what he had fixed, what he had assumed, what he should have checked. By the time he finished, the original mistake was no longer the center of the conversation. Evan was. His manager leaned back and said, "You seem defensive." That sentence stayed with him all evening. Not because it was fair, because some part of him believed it might be true. That night, his older brother called about a family dinner Evan had missed. Evan said he had been working late. His brother said, "You always have an excuse." Evan started explaining again. The traffic, the deadline, the messages he had answered, the fact that he had planned to come, the reason he had not called sooner. His brother stopped listening halfway through. Evan could hear it in the silence. He was not being understood. He was being evaluated. Evan had a name for it now, the approval trap. It begins with a simple hope. If I explain myself clearly enough, the other person will see my intentions and give me a fair judgment. Sometimes that works. Healthy communication needs context. Good relationships leave room for clarification. But the approval trap is different. In the approval trap, you are not communicating to reach understanding. You are presenting evidence to earn permission to trust your own reality. You're no longer saying, "Here's what happened." You're saying, "Please confirm that I am still a good person." And that is why the explanation never feels finished. There is always one more detail that might change their mind, one more message that might make them understand, one more memory that might prove you were not selfish, careless, cold, difficult, or wrong. The courtroom keeps reopening because the verdict never comes from inside you. But Evan had not learned this at work. He had learned it much earlier, in a moment when someone with more power decided what the truth was. A child says, "I didn't break it." An adult asks, "Then why were you standing there?" The child adds more details. "I was only walking past, I wasn't touching it. I was going to tell you. I didn't know it was already cracked." The child is not searching for truth anymore. The child is searching for safety. Over time, explanation becomes a reflex. Someone is disappointed, and you rush to repair their opinion. Someone is angry, and you rush to prove your innocence. Someone becomes distant, and you search your memory for the exact sentence that caused it. You start treating every uncomfortable reaction as a courtroom summons. And the cruelest part? You assume the other person wanted to be a fair judge. But some people never wanted to be a judge. They wanted to be the verdict. There's a difference between someone who misunderstands you and someone who has already decided who you are. A person who misunderstands you may ask a question. They may say, "That's not how I experienced it. Can you help me understand?" They are not necessarily agreeing with you, but they are still looking for information. A person who has already decided may use your explanation as another reason to keep the original story alive. You say, "I was overwhelmed." They hear, "You are making excuses." You say, "I needed a little space." They hear, "You do not care about anyone." You say, "That was not my intention." They hear, "You are trying to avoid responsibility." At some point, the problem is no longer that your words are unclear. The problem is that the other person benefits from a version of you that cannot defend itself without looking defensive. This is why some conversations leave you exhausted even when you said everything correctly. You are not having a conversation. You were trying to appeal a verdict. Evan began noticing a pattern at work. When his manager wanted information, he asked specific questions. When his manager wanted control, he asked vague questions and rejected every answer. The difference was not the tone. Both conversations could sound professional. The difference was what happened after the explanation. Did the answer create clarity? Or did it create another accusation? Evan started noticing the same thing in his family. His brother did not ask why he missed dinner because he wanted to plan better next time. He asked because Evan's absence had disturbed the role everyone expected him to play. Evan was the reliable one, the available one, the person who adjusted first. The moment he stopped performing that role, the family story had to change. And people often resist a new version of someone they have learned to benefit from. They may call your boundaries selfish because your availability was useful to them. They may call your calmness cold because your emotional reaction gave them influence. They may call your growth arrogance because your insecurity made them comfortable. That does not automatically make them villains, but it does mean their interpretation may not be neutral. Every explanation has a cost. The first cost is time. You spend 20 minutes proving something that could have been said in one sentence. The second cost is attention. You stop listening to your own experience and start monitoring the other person's reaction. The third cost is identity. You begin editing yourself before anyone else can misunderstand you. You choose safer words, smaller goals, softer opinions. You become easier to approve of and harder to recognize. That is how the courtroom moves inside your head. Eventually, nobody has to accuse you. You become your own prosecutor. You explain your decision before anyone asks. You apologize for needing rest. You add a smile to a boundary so it does not sound too serious. You say, "I'm sorry," when what you mean is, "This matters to me." And then you wonder why people do not respect what you keep presenting as negotiable. Evan's turning point came on a Tuesday morning. His manager criticized him for a delay that had been caused by a decision made above him. Evan felt the familiar heat in his chest. He opened his mouth and felt the entire explanation waiting behind his teeth. The dates, the messages, the names, the reason, the proof. Then he noticed something. His manager was not asking a question. He was building a case. Evan took a breath and said, "The delay came from the changed approval timeline. I can give you the updated schedule by noon." His manager frowned. "That's all you have to say?" For a moment, Evan almost reopened the courtroom. Then he said, "That's the relevant part." The room went quiet. Nothing magical happened. His manager did not suddenly apologize. Nobody applauded Evan's maturity. But something inside him changed. He had communicated without begging to be acquitted. The goal is not to become silent, cold, or impossible to question. The goal is to stop confusing explanation with surrender. When you have stated what happened, what you need, or what you have decided, you can stop. You can say, "I've explained my position. I'm not going to keep defending it." And then stop. Not because you have nothing more to say, because you finally understand that more words will not change a closed verdict. This sentence is not a weapon. It is a door you stop holding open for an endless trial. Some people will respect the door. Some people will push harder. That reaction is information. When you stop over-explaining, some relationships become calmer. You realize the other person was confused and needed context. A short conversation repairs the misunderstanding. Other relationships become louder. The person asks for more proof, then more detail, then a better apology, then a version of the story in which you accept all the blame. That is painful, but it is also clarity. You discover that some people did not want an explanation. They wanted access to your guilt. And when guilt no longer opens the door, the relationship has to reveal what was holding it together. Evan lost a few conversations after he stopped defending himself. He also lost the constant anxiety of preparing for them. His brother still disagreed with him. His manager still criticized his work. People still misunderstood him. But their misunderstanding no longer automatically became his emergency. That was the difference. For the next 7 days, notice the moment you begin over-explaining. Just notice. Do not judge. Ask yourself one thing. Have I already said the clearest version of what I mean? If yes, stop there. Not because your truth does not matter, because it matters too much to keep placing it in the hands of someone committed to misunderstanding it. Evan did not become impossible to misunderstand. He became unwilling to keep standing trial. That is the part nobody tells you about emotional maturity. It does not guarantee that people will see you correctly. It teaches you that their version of you is not the final authority on who you are. Peace does not begin when everyone agrees with your explanation. It begins when their disagreement no longer decides who you are. So the next time you feel the urge to send one more message, add one more detail, or prove that your heart was in the right place, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to communicate? Or am I trying to escape a courtroom that only exists because I keep returning to it? If this story made you think of a conversation you are tired of having, write one word in the comments. Enough. And subscribe to Limitless Lab for more stories about the small psychological patterns that quietly shape our lives.